Welcome back to Earth Changes Radio, episode 23. What in the world is going on? Brought to you by the two guys busier than the cat at a Greyhound meeting. And now, here they are. It's Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network. Take it away,
boys. Okay, thank you very much, Carol. As always, we appreciate you. And welcome to another episode of Earth Changes Radio, earthchangesradio.com, exclusively on Pal Talk in the Ancient Observatory, an impromptu show for Saturday night, August the 10th, 2017, with my good friend Steve Johnson from Australia sitting in. Good evening, Steve.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Earthplay. It is indeed Friday morning here, Thursday night American time, so I don't know if you're coming to us live and direct from the future, whether or not they have some sort of future time machine which has transported you somehow, but that's the kind of twilight zone we live in. Who knows what gosh darn day it is anyway? I mean, this year has gone so fast, it's almost September. Here in Australia, that means it's almost time to plant your tomatoes, or tomatoes, however it is pronounced. I really don't know. But before we go on, I'd like to thank everybody in the chat room today, Mr. P.D. James, CJ4, Mr. Benjamin, Daves. Hey, what's going on? True Seeker 38. True Seeker, take the mic. Take the mic. True Seeker, take the mic. Suicide Blonde, God bless you. Textman2, Seabot, of course, and Mr. Breathing Lightning, and yours truly, Rick James. Did I say Rick James, bitch? No, I said Mr. Rick Chicago, coming to us live and direct from his undisclosed location in a concrete bunker underneath the canyons, the Grand Canyons. But nevertheless, oh yes, it is. It is indeed just gone 12 midnight in most places in the United States, and that means, of course, it is Friday morning. So a very good morning, a very good afternoon, a very good evening, no matter what's your time zone across this beautiful planet Earth of ours. And of course, it wouldn't be any kind of Earth Changes Radio without thanking and recognizing the sponsors who make this possible. Of course, howtowinincourt.com. Check that out. We have a big thank you to Organite by Mishkaites, and of course, Big Whoop Magazine and the Southwest Backpacker. Anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Earthplay, sir?
Thank you, Steve. I think I would just like to start over. Hello, everybody, all my friends, foes, and assorted others. Another show, Friday morning, midnight, August 10th, 11th, wherever you are in the great country. Is that a little bit better? Thought I was Saturday night. I have to be somewhere today. Let's see. Let's start at the Arctic Circle tonight, Steve. How about that? We'll start in the Arctic Circle. This is a little bit disturbing, but first of all, mentioning the word disturbing, if you are mentally ill or prone to depression or anything like that, well, buckle up, Buttercup, because tonight is going to be another disturbing show. Okay, back to the Arctic Circle. A little bit disturbing. We got the news in today that the interior motion of the Arctic Circle's jet stream is now moving counterclockwise. It should be moving clockwise. It's moving counterclockwise in its center. You can go check this out right now at nullschooldirt.com at 250 in the air menu of the Earth Null School menu. Just set it over the North Pole, and you're going to see. What's so disturbing about this is it's a branch of high pressure, warm air, that has been pushed into the Arctic Circle. Now it's right directly over the Arctic Circle at 6 degrees Celsius. That's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the jet streams are being completely disrupted because of this. They're almost intangible, and no discernible patterns right now in the northern jet stream. However, transversely in the southern portion of the planet, where it is winter right now, the jet streams are larger and more active than normal. They're spreading out to about 10 degrees short of the equatorial, 10 degrees off of the equatorial. So this is a phenomena that we have not observed before, new changing type of jet stream circulation that's going on here. Remember, we're also coming into an alignment with Jupiter, August and September where the Brooklyn currents connect with the Earth a little bit and bring us a little bit more energy pumped up into our atmosphere, which brings us the hurricane season in August and September. Couple that with August and September is also the return halon current from the solar, from the heliospheric boundaries, like a giant dipole battery. This is the return current in these months, which also supercharge the atmosphere. It's going to be a very exciting month, Steve, with the activity of the polar jet streams acting up the way they are. So we have actually went back and I personally checked this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and 7 years ago, when we were having some serious problems in the Arctic. The temperatures were not at 40 degrees Fahrenheit like they are right now. They were always below zero, always, except in some portions of the ice mass of Greenland, which experienced just a little bit of melting at about 34, 35 degrees. So this is a significant departure from anything that we've seen in the past. Just stay tuned, because this is changing on a daily basis. Just about like the migration of the North Magnetic Pole is now moving east again towards Greenland instead of its march towards Siberia and then hopping around the Arctic Circle. So it's a fluid situation. It's changing day to day, and there's more of this jet stream current. We talked about this a little bit on our show this week, Steve, but we have some big Fukushima news this week. Big Fukushima news. The headlines came out globally today that a bomb was found in the parking lot of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant number 1, giving you the impression that probably a terrorist or somebody was responsible for the previous explosions at Fukushima. Well, it turns out that the bomb that they're talking about being found at Fukushima Daiichi today turns out to be a World War II arsenal bomb that was found near one of the parking lots on the outskirts of the reactor building number 1, where they were building an excavation trench for some project that they're working on, and found this bomb. So it's left over from World War II. Steve, I can't help but to wonder, do they do geological surveys of any of these nuclear power plants, you know, kind of maybe look into the dirt and seep through it and, you know, see how it's, how the strata is formed, and what just might be under the ground there. So, yeah, this turns out to be a false alarm there, SB. Just a World War II era piece of munitions. I don't know, they say it's about the length of a human arm, and probably about the width of a human arm, so I'm not sure how catastrophic a detonation of something that size might be outside the reactor buildings. But this situation also is fluid at Fukushima, so we'll have more on this a little bit later as well. Steve, what do you got up for us today for your first story?
Well, Mr. Earthplay, even though they have found that it is an unexploded ordnance from World War II, don't be surprised if the media reports it as some guy running away from Daiichi power plant yelling Allah Akbar. Don't be surprised if they say that in the media. Very, very interesting. I found this story just recently happening in August of this year that says the Earth's Schumann resonance, Mother Earth's natural heartbeat rhythm, is accelerating, but nobody knows why. My question to you, sir, is this a symptom of the overall problems on the Earth, of what's happening with the gamma rays hitting Earth and the neutrinos that are bombarding Earth every day? Or is this part of the significant problem that the Earth is facing? Are we seeing a rising of the Schumann resonance in response to other things happening? Or is this partially the cause of why these Earth changes are happening at an accelerating rate? Very, very curious question. We possibly should need to get Greg Braden on here to talk about this. But what is your opinion on the rising of the Earth's Schumann resonance frequency, Mr. Earthplay?
I don't know what to tell you about that, Steve. Only that I am aware of it, that the Schumann resonant frequency of hydrogen is 11.5, and that recently these vibrational frequencies have picked up to a human resonant frequency of 11.77. So it's definitely rising. What that means, I couldn't specifically tell you. And I don't think that it is specific to only the Earth's environment. This is solar system wide. This is within the heliosphere, the heliospheric boundary of our sun. So this is something that is being measured in the space surrounding the Earth and with the frequencies and the harmonics of the sun. And as you well know, we're going into a grand solar minimum. The sun is getting quieter, so why are these frequencies being excited or vibrated? Many people would tell you, well, it's planet X. Well, that's not a good enough reason because there's no evidence to support that or to suggest it. But the geological record actually gives us more clues than we ever expected to have. And most of it is background radiation and cosmic rays, Steve. And as you well know, since December of 26th last year, we moved into a photon belt, a stream of light, which is, it's not physical, you can't see it, although it is physical, until it bounces off of matter, but it's X-rays and microwaves and ultraviolets and radio waves and all of this, the rainbow in the spectrum of light. And we have been in one of these clouds since December the 26th. And apparently this one is prolonged. We don't know how long we're going to be in it. We know how long we've already been in it since December 26th. But apparently now another wave is sweeping in over the top of that wave, that we're kind of stuck in that wave. Or it may take a year for that wave to move past our solar system, or 10 years, or 100 years. Well, this is another one of those ones that sweep through in a week. So a lot of curious anomalies happening, Steve, associated with this grand solar minimum. And I did kind of want to talk about this a little bit because I've noticed the earthquake activity has picked up on the San Andreas fault line today, specifically today. And it's pretty serious. Most of the earthquakes that we experience are like a sharp 7.0, an 8.0, a 9.0. Just very sharp and very sudden. Very seldomly do you get precursor earthquakes. But that seems to be the case in what we're seeing here. They started out as sub-1s. Barely detectable. Then they were 1 magnitude. Then they were 2 magnitude. Now they're in the 3 magnitude, and they have spread out along a specific fault line, which would be the San Andreas fault line, moving from the Bay of Baja, California and Mexico, up through California to right off the coast of San Francisco right now today. There was even another earthquake about an hour ago right off the coast of San Francisco, and in a place that I was spent a lot of time as a teenager in Mount Tamalpais, in Bolinas and Stinson Beach in Marin County, in the Redwood Forest. And it's a very difficult place to get to. You have to cross the Redwood Forest over Mount Tamalpais to get there. It's very secluded, or at least it was back in the 70s. Really enjoyed being there. But to hear that there are earthquakes, swarms now occurring in that area, right on the San Andreas Fault, going right out into the sea, and even more earthquakes along the Cascadia, I can't help but to feel that something has to give here really soon. And maybe we're seeing a build-up to a larger events. But it's very hard to say. Nature is very fickle. It could happen. It could just kind of all fade away and then occur, suddenly, as I suggested. But I think that these gradual buildups are actually building up to a larger movement. There have been gosh, I didn't mean to say eruptions. Micro swarms of earthquakes in the Yellowstone caldera, and a lot of concern and a lot of news stories and a lot of reporting, and I can't discount a single word of it. Yes, there's a lot of activity there, and I have told you that I do believe that a volcanic eruption at Yellowstone is imminent, maybe within the next couple of years. But I don't feel that it is going to erupt to the catastrophic view that the world seems to have about this volcano. I have to remind people that Yellowstone has erupted like a single volcano or a single magma pot. It has erupted 33 times since its last catastrophic eruption. And I do expect something like this to happen. This happened 33 times. I expect for it to happen again, and we may be in one of those periods. But I don't think there's anything really strong that would suggest that this is a park-wide or a national or a very large global event. There does seem to be a lot of magma under there, but if it was under any pressure at all, it would be erupting already, because Yellowstone has proven to be intrinsically tied to the magma chambers with its steam pots and its boiling mud. So I don't think that that's the case, that it would be a one-time giant eruption. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier, about the pyroclastic flows. The one that you really have to watch out for is when the eruption ends. It will have sent a ash and pumice cloud maybe 30, 40, 50,000, 60,000 feet into the atmosphere. It's when the eruption ends and that entire column of ash and pumice and rock and debris collapses back down around the mountain or the eruption. That's the pyroclastic flow that you have to watch out for. They could sweep out a 100-mile direction. Normally we would say
visit
5 to 10
Hawaii,
miles,
home
but,
to a
you know, given the size of this baby, anything within a couple of 100 miles will be instantly buried in ash and rock. It would be very hard to survive any of that. So that's the type of eruption that I foresee as a geologist happening in the Yellowstone caldera. And of course, all fingers are pointing at the Norris Basin geyser area. So let's hope that I'm right. Let's hope that I'm right, and that the people that are reporting a catastrophic eruption there are wrong. And I do expect there to be more eruptions, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes in the following days and months, just due to the solar activity, the geological solar minimum parallels that we're finding. So, you know, time will tell, but if time has been any indicator so far, Steve, it would say that all of these events are sharply on the uptick.
Well, sir, one reason I believe the Schumann resonance is changing and that the world's climate is changing, that we're seeing different and differing patterns of climate throughout the Earth, is because of the dense cloud of dense interstellar matter that has been reported heading towards our Earth. Our solar system may be headed for an encounter with a dense cloud of interstellar matter. Now, we might know this as the Ibex wave. We might know this as a cloud that just goes around the arm or the spiral arm of the Milky Way. However, I do believe that this report that came out in 1996. That's like 20 years ago, maybe more. Yeah, over 20 years ago. So very curiously, they have known for many, many years that the solar system may be headed towards a dense cloud of interstellar matter that is headed our way. Are we seeing that now? Is this the effects that we're feeling on Earth now? That report actually is from 1996 and shows that it was posted there on the internet back then. Now, why is this not being talked about? Why is there no updates to this? Why are the scientists blindly saying that there's nothing to see here, folks? It's climate change, and you're the cause of it because of all the CO2. What do you say, Earthplay? Is that not fascinating? Is that not part of what we are talking about here, about the Ibex wave that is hitting the solar system currently? Your mic, sir.
I would have to say absolutely yes. And for those of you who don't know what the Ibex wave is, it's the International Boundary Explorer Telescope Project. from the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories that take the FEMA project, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, the HESS, the High Energy Stereoscopic Surveys, as well as the IBEX, which is the International Boundary Explorer, at the heliosphere, which is making a composite map of the Milky Way galaxy, or the dark rift, which we can't even see through it. But there are millions, literally millions, tens of millions of objects between us and this dark ribbon called the dark rift of our Milky Way galaxy that we can't see through, which is just a dense cloud of nebula and stellar nursery and planet-making material that really hasn't combusted yet. So we only see the dark. We don't see any light bursting out of it quite yet. But we see a lot of things that have been thrown away from this cloud, and that's the stuff that we're watching. And in a galactic superwave, Paul Laviolette talks about this in Earth Under Fire, which is both a great book and a great movie. I enjoyed both. And he describes galactic superwaves type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4, which type 4 is unsurvivable, type 3 is probably unsurvivable. But we are in a type 1 galactic superwave, which is described as being made up entirely of highly charged particles, gamma rays basically, that are in a spectrum that cannot be seen. And they pump up the volume and the duration of the saturation as they move through, because they're larger and smaller clouds. Some of them move through in days and weeks and months, and some of them can persist for many, many years. And we find ourselves inexplicably in a position where we are in a galactic superwave type 1, which is under the belt of photon belt spectrum of light, which we cannot see. And now we are moving into a galactic superwave type 2, which is the material that we can see. The dust, the cloud, the nebula, or not nebula material. I was trying to think of the great hydrogen cloud, the great big blob that they have found in space that we're headed straight towards. These are all type 2 galactic superwaves, which are already sweeping through our solar system. We're getting gamma ray counts across every city. The EPA and other governmental institutions have increased the level of radiation exposure by 10,000%. Maybe that was to cover their tracks from Fukushima, but instead of being at a level of 30 rem or above, that would cause National Guard mobility and state of emergencies in most cities, is now well over 300 counts in every city, and nobody is even flinching. It's 100 times worse than what was set for the miners going into uranium mines here in Mount Taylor, New Mexico. So now these counts of 300, 400, 1,200, 1,400, nobody even blinks an eye. And we would associate that to being North Korean nuclear fallout, Fukushima, Bikini Atolls, which is still in our atmosphere, it's still falling to the earth, and many other nuclear cataclysms, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, just add them all up, they're all still there. But the radiation now is at a saturation point, but that it isn't coming from our own nuclear industry as we had first suspected, and I'm sure that it is a great contributing factor, don't get me wrong, but the preponderance of the material striking the Earth's surface being found in the beryllium 10 record and in the ice cores at the top right now, in current meteorological, we are getting saturated with gamma rays at the surface, UVs in all spectrums including UVC, which sterilizes hospital operating rooms. So we know that this material is hitting the ground. These particles are hitting the ground. You cannot see them, but you certainly can feel them on your skin. Cancers, melanomas, everything else is at epidemic levels. We reported that on our last show, that ABC News reported from the CDC that cancers have exploded nationwide and they don't have a reason for it. Well, as I suggested, many of us could give you 3 or 4 good reasons for the increase of cancers and dementias and other epidemics, be they loss of crops, the rise of Zika and other bacterial and biological outbreaks. We can give you some explanation as to what might be feeding some of these things. And it's not all man. So go ahead, Steve. Yeah, that was, I know, that was pretty long, and I'm not even sure what I said.
Well, sir, it was very, very fascinating, and indeed, we have a lot of great information that people certainly do look forward to. I do know that. I get a lot of emails during the week asking me when the next show is, but I do have another great story here. This is another technology story, and I'm going to start calling this the Elysium file, because we don't know if this technology is going to us, or it's going to the elites, or who's going to get this kind of technology that they're finding out, and the breakthroughs that they're finding out in medical technology. A step towards eternal life. Scientists have now found a way to reverse the aging process in human beings. Now, are we going to see this? I don't know. So I'm going to put this in. I'm going to file this away in the Elysium file, because we don't know how much of this technology we are actually going to see as people here on Earth. But we'll be right back after this short message break. Do stick with us. This is Earth Changes Radio with an impromptu, Thursday night, Friday morning, midnight show with some very, very fascinating information. Our first ad sponsor is brought to you by the United States government, urging you to visit Hawaii.
Visit Hawaii, home to a shitload of over-commodified wonders. Waikiki, Waimea, whitewashing, this bullshit, and of course, Jurassic Park. As well as to America's least known military occupation. That's right, hordes of tourists visit every year, but sadly, few experience the real Hawaii, a sovereign nation illegally occupied by the USA since 1893, when a bunch of rich American businessmen overthrew the world-recognized Kingdom of Hawaii in a coup. Just like we did in Iraq, except in Hawaii, we never withdrew our troops. Instead, we built stacks of permanent military bases and annexed the territory without a treaty. Sure, native Hawaiians protested, but 0 fucks were given, and we made Hawaii the 50th state of... So President Trump was right about one thing. Technically, Obama was not born in America, but in a foreign country illegally occupied by the USA. Today, each island offers a unique flavor of occupation for you to come and enjoy. Oahu, where tourist and military occupations work together in perfect harmony, plaguing the land and driving natives into poverty. Kauai, where Mark Zuckerberg is continuing the tradition of rich American businessmen pushing natives off their lands. Or why not just buy a whole island, like this rich howler prick did on Lanai. Maui, where rivers diverted to sugar farms have deprived natives of access to water. Molokai, where Monsanto is occupying the land with genetically modified crops. Kahol, or whatever. The sacred island we bombed so hard for target practice we even cracked its water table. And finally, Big Island, where we plan to ram the world's biggest telescope right into the summit of Mauna Kea, the natives' most sacred mountain. Visit Hawaii, the country you never even knew we were occupying. Authorized by the Department of Military Occupations disguised as tourist destinations.
Hi, this is Graviton Cleric, and you are listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network.
This is Patrol Devlin. You are listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network, live on powertalk.com. Tashi Delek. Thank you very much.
Welcome back here to Earth Changes Radio. We've got some great news and some great stories. One of the first stories I'd like to share with people is this one. NASA is spending, I suppose, billions of dollars to try and check out the sun by sending a probe to the sun. Believe it or not, NASA's Parker probe mission is to touch the sun, of course, before it explodes and melts down into a fiery ball of metal, liquid metal. But why are they spending so much money to send probes to the sun? I've got no idea. Could it be something more? Do they know something about the sun that they're not telling us? Or is there more information that they need to find out about the sun only by sending a probe to get melted down before it even touches the sun itself? Of course, the highest temperature whatsoever is about 2.5 million degrees centigrade, which is in the atmosphere of the sun. There is no way any kind of probe can get near the sun with that kind of temperature. So why are they even sending this? I don't know. But perhaps we could have some more information as it gets closer to the time when they send it up there. But you're listening to Earth Changes Radio with all the changes that are happening on the Earth this week with Rick and Steve. And right about now, we're going to hand you over to the man himself, the very incomparable, the incomparable, Mr. Rick Earthplay. Go ahead, sir. Mic is yours.
Just a minute. I have to put on my cowl and my cape. Good luck on that project. Another waste of the American taxpayers' money. But if they were ever going to send a probe anywhere near the sun or its photosphere, now would be the time, going into a solar minimum. Because there is a lot of debate, is there actually nuclear fission occurring at the surface of the sun? Some of us say that yes, it does, and many of our most prominent physicists say that the fission happens deep within the sun, moving from its core to its exterior over millions of years. That may be true, it may not be true. We still have a lot to learn living with a variable star. I think just getting through this grand solar minimum that we have just moved into should take a little bit more precedence, and I think that more awareness and public disclosure is needed here by our government and our emergency constituents out there, you know, FEMA and everyone else who are supposed to be there in a time of a disaster, just warning people. If you live in places that are prone to floods, well, be on the lookout for floods. If you are in a tornado-prone area, you know, be on the lookout for tornadoes. You know, just very common sense. If you have ever experienced a blizzard in your life over the last 50 years, and now blizzards are a very unique type of convective storm system. Very bizarre, very deadly. Blizzards are probably the worst phenomena that you want to encounter on the Earth, besides a volcano. So if you have experienced a blizzard in your lifetime, look around and be prepared for the off chance that a blizzard or blizzard-like conditions could exist in this period of time. I don't know what it is, Nephilim, that for whatever reason, and I've experienced this by looking at the feedback data for our Facebook page, that if it has something to do of any relevance or impact to society, they don't want to hear about it. I've put up many stories about polluted aquifers, nuclear updates, and other updates, and they only get 2, 3, 4, you know, maybe a couple of people will click on it just out of curiosity, but it's the meteor showers and the eclipse and stories like that that are common everyday stories that will get clicked on, but yet not the methane releases in the Arctic Circle, the above world record. These are shattering. This is not fake news. This is not fake media. This is not hype and speculation. This is something going on this week physically on our Earth in the Arctic Circle, people don't seem to care about it, Steve, any more than they're concerned about. Scientists are now releasing publicly that they're concerned over how much volcanic ash has already accumulated in the Earth's environment just in the last year or two, just the last couple of years. This does not seem to be of any concern to any average mainstream citizen, Steve, and I'm wondering why. Your water, the aquifer, the Ogallala aquifer, for the first time, this is the first time they've ever reported this, that the uranium spike in the aquifer has gone up 187% from the University of Nebraska study of the Ogallala aquifer. People are not concerned. Fish are dying up, washing up and dying all up and down the coast of every variety, from starfish to seabirds and mammals, and it just doesn't seem to matter to anyone. I don't get it, Steve, but we are experiencing profound global changes in the weather, in the jet streams, in the ocean currents, and it really doesn't bother anyone. Let the food prices go up. Let the energy prices go up. What is the breaking point? I don't know what it will be, but if you're watching the price differential in all of these commodities and all of these services jump in leaps and bounds, I don't think it's actually keeping up with the physical conditions of the crop failures and the other problems that we've had just flying aircraft in the Earth's environment. Ash, aircraft cannot fly through ash. As we found out that at 118 degrees, aircraft cannot fly because the air is too thick to get any lift on the aircraft, and they are in great peril of crashing. So we do need to start paying attention to some of these changing conditions that we have never seen before. We've never experienced before. But it seems to be the common perception, Steve, here with the general public is, well, yeah, that used to happen. It has happened many times before. We know that it's going to happen again, but it's not possible because we're here now. And that kind of a logic just doesn't wash with the empirical evidence that is starting to stack up pretty high on our desks here, Steve.
Well, you know, sir, Mr. Earthplay, I got some breaking news as far as physics is concerned, science and physics. There's an amazing story about ever-elusive neutrinos spotted bouncing off nuclei for the first time. Now, most of these neutrino observers that are built around the Earth for the last 10-15 years, they've been built in places like the Atlantic Ocean. They've been built in places like caves in Japan. I believe there is one in the UK and one in Antarctica. Well, now they have a neutrino observer that is the size of your average fire extinguisher. Have a look at this. There's a picture there of a neutrino observer that has spotted neutrinos bouncing off nuclei for the first time. We are in an age where things are getting so much more advanced that they don't have to build these massive, massive facilities to detect neutrinos, the ever-elusive neutrinos. They now have these small, handy-dandy neutrino observers that you can fit in an average-size sports bag. Fantastic information, fantastic technology that we have here. And of course, Hubble, NASA's telescope, has spotted an exoplanet with a glowing water atmosphere. We're finding all these exoplanets. We're finding all these strange planets of all these distant stars. Well, now they've found a planet that has a glowing water atmosphere coming off it. This gives more of a chance that there are planets out there that have water, and there are many planets out there, no doubt, that are within the Goldilocks zone that have water that could support life. And it just shows there is so much more that we have yet to learn, and Carl Sagan was right. There are as many planets out there as there are grains of sand on a beach. And Drake's equation even says to us that the mathematical possibility of life in our cosmos is just too overwhelming to ignore. And I think that's another another point in the right direction that we will indeed see extraterrestrial life. That's not to say ETs or aliens. We will see other beings that are similar to us, and we probably will meet them within our lifetime here on Earth. What say you, Earthplay? Your mic, sir.
Well, that was a loaded question. Yeah, they're out there, Steve. Do I think they're here right now? I don't know. A lot of people are starting to see a lot of strange things. I can't explain them. And the overwhelming majority of these people, millions of people across the world, we can't just dismiss their stories as crackpots. But I don't have the answers to that. I sure don't. As far as the neutrinos and well, let me go back here to this planning again. I have no doubt that there are a lot of planets out there that are habitable and that I would like to go and visit one day. But let's take care of the one that we have, because I think that we're actually poisoning ourselves out of existence. I've said many times, Steve, I don't think that humanity will survive the nuclear age. And the science and the empirical data kind of pans that out. It kind of shows that. The extinction of the human race just based on that one factor alone. But we're facing so many more other dire consequences in a solar minimum with earthquake and volcanic activity. We can be living in smarter structures, eco-friendly structures. We need to start growing food inside in warehouses and stadiums, where they play football and great sporting events. It's not something that we want to do, but it's something that we're going to have to do. And we're making no contingency plans whatsoever. We reported last week that worldwide, in every nation, on every continent on the earth, massive crop failures. We may be able to get away with it for a year or two, but not for very many. And food prices are already going astronomically out of the roof. Most people can't even afford to buy pork or beef anymore, and barely poultry anymore. The markets are strangulated, and a lot of it is to do with Monsanto's. Setting out as their mission to feed the world, and all they did is strangulated the world food market. So we're having a hard time maintaining the planet that we have. I would like to think about and to speculate and to dream about life on other planets and other planets. But I'm really concerned about the one that we have here. And I think that we absolutely can survive many of these problems that we have, but not everybody is going to survive it. But we need to start being proactive now and recognizing that we have these problems. And it's not just the nuclear industry, it's the vaccine industry, the pharmaceutical industry. They have a purpose. They could be useful to us. But don't cram it down our throat as a universal dogma. So we have a lot of problems here to fix. And if we don't get a hold of them pretty soon, as we all talk about very frequently, any one of these can spiral out of control very quickly. And we can even throw in a few pandemics, and Zika's and Ebola's and a few other West Nile fevers and hemorrhagic fevers, so, let's get a grasp. And all everybody wants to talk about is war. And I find that inexplicable, Steve. War, war, war. Let's talk about peace. Let's talk about rebuilding all of our countries. So I just don't understand where people's heads are at these days, Steve.
Well, sir, we're talking about possible pandemics and how fragile our life is here on planet Earth. Just this week, New South Wales has been hit with the worst flu outbreak ever, as 4 viruses hit the entire state, and hospitalized nearly 9,000 people across the state. There's been reports at least 2 people have died from this flu outbreak in New South Wales. Well, now that flu has actually jumped across the border to Queensland, where almost 3,500 people have been hospitalized because of this gastro outbreak, or the cases of confirmed flu cases. And these are only the people who are going into the hospital. No doubt there are thousands and thousands more who have not gone to hospital, who are treating themselves, and who are at home trying to get better. The government, in response to this, has pushed this as the reason why more people need to get vaccinated. You need your flu vaccination, otherwise you're going to get it. I mean, bullshit. Can anyone say overuse of medications, overuse of pharmacological deep pharma? Well, that's what's happening. We are using too many antibiotics in the vaccinations in our bodies, and it is just causing an immune system breakdown. We are not eating the right foods, and the foods that we are eating do not have the right vitamins and minerals in them that they used to have, that used to keep the human body healthy and active and alive. Now, most of the foods we have are dead. We're eating dead foods, and this is why people are suffering much, much more from simple things like the flu and gastroenteritis, and catching all these viruses and getting all these deadly things that are killing them, because we don't have the immune system that our forebears and our descendants once had. We don't have the vitality in the foods anymore. We have been eating processed foods so much more. That's right. Suicide Blonde makes a very good point. Flu was never this deadly. If you caught the flu, you'd have some soup, Mom would put you into bed, a couple of days rest, you'd be right as rain after that. But now, it's knocking people out. It is actually knocking them out for weeks at a time. And that's unprecedented. We're seeing more and more of this all the time. More bird flu, more mutations, as Breathing Lightning points out, and it does. It mutates into a different form, and because we've been using these antibiotics, because we've been pumping our bodies full of this processed garbage food, we now see that the bodies are unable to fight back against these kinds of outbreaks that are happening. Is this going to get bigger? You betcha. Every year we're going to see more of this happen, and more different strains occurring within the human race and the human population here on Earth. Should we blame Monsanto? Damn straight we should. That they are definitely part of this problem and definitely partially responsible. Go ahead there, Earthplay. Your mic, sir.
Well, I'll take it one step further, Steve, that you and I are part of a herd as well. You ever been to a big dairy cow and every cow has a tag on his ear? Every one of them. They all get their shots, they all line up, they're all put through the funnel, they're all put through the system, they're all milked, they're all put back out for their 8 hours of rest and television and whatever you want to do in your off hours, and then you do it again. They look at us as a herd, and some government officials have actually slipped and called us the herd. And they need us all to be vaccinated and compliant. So we already live in that society, Steve. I would suggest to you.
Well, sir, the title of tonight's show is actually called What in the World is Going On? And indeed we can say what the heck in the solar system is going on too, when scientists have the plan, as Mr. Clipper used to point out, for Project Lucifer. What is Project Lucifer? Well, that is the plan that scientists have, the mad scientist plan to explode Jupiter, the gas giant, into some kind of new star, into some kind of new sun, which will allow the outer regions of our solar system to be habitable. Having a sun that far out will in fact heat up some of the other planets and create an atmosphere and create a vibrant planet that's ready to be terraformed. Is this a crazy idea to create a new star in our solar system so we have a binary star system? It's just mad. The fact of the matter is that they're trying to use that, or use a black hole to create this star and to create the explosion or the chain reaction needed. And in my mind, that is man playing God. That is something that is just crazy. They thought it was a great idea to explode nuclear bombs in our atmosphere, in our stratosphere, and how did that turn out? Let me know. How did that turn out, guys? Was that such a good idea in the start? They thought it was a great idea to drop atom bombs and neutron bombs and hydrogen bombs. How did that turn out? Was that a great idea? These scientists really need to get their head checked. When they come up with these ideas to start new stars in our solar system, I think they're pushing shit uphill. They're going one step too far, and in fact, a lot of these guys need a mental evaluation. To be honest, that's what I think. Go ahead there, Earthplay.
Holy crap. That's unfathomable. I'm not even sure the Earth's environment would survive the shock wave. Now, Jupiter is 5.5 AU away from the Earth, and it's roughly half the size of the solar mass of our Sun. So, in detonating Jupiter, I don't think the Earth's environment would survive the shock wave. As far as the sunlight and the energy coming from Jupiter, it would always be shining on the night side of the Earth. So I'm not. It would almost be like a full moon. The brightness of a full moon, just naturally from Jupiter, you would add in the brightness of a full moon. It may be somewhere between full light and half of a lighted day. So it'd be very interesting, but what that just ludicrous to me that someone would even think of that, Steve.
Well, sir, Mr. Earthplay, we have seen that there's been a massive heat wave going across America this summer in the northern hemisphere. Well, now they're issuing warnings that the extreme heat and the heat waves that's going to hit Europe will possibly kill up to 150,000 people across Europe. They've already issued warnings about this, that the climate change, the weather forecasting is due to actually occur and, in fact, kill people. The weather is now a killer. I don't know how they can forecast this, how they know this, or indeed how people cannot see that this is just crazy, that this stuff is happening and it's happening now on the earth, and how many people are going to die that we won't even get to hear about that are being affected by the weather, or they put it down to, oh, he had a bad heart, or in fact, he just died of old age. You know, it might have been heat stroke, he might have died in his sleep, you know, in record temperatures, but still, they'll put it down to, oh, that's just normal. There's nothing to see here, folks. And of course, mainstream media will not be reporting on this. They certainly have not been warning people about this. I've not seen this in the news that Google has put out, that their AI has allowed me to watch or to see or to get access to. This is the stuff that you have to go and search for yourself. You have to go and search for particular specific word search terms. And Google itself, I've noticed lately, is getting really, really sloppy as far as reporting the news. They are a bad, bad news service. In fact, when they put Snopes.com down as one of the news of the day, you know that there's issues and there's problems with reporting the news when Snopes makes the common everyday headline news. Go ahead, Earthplay.
Yeah, and this is starting to becoming very alarming, Steve, because I actually got a notification from Robert Felix at iceagenow.info, where he put up a story that now he believes that some of this climate engineering is going on, and the leading culprit is the U.S. Army. Now, that wouldn't surprise me one bit. I have heard this so many times. How could we be going into a solar minimum, but yet we have places on the Earth that are being fried like they're under a magnifying glass? And isn't that the indicator right there, Nephilim, Steve? That these specific areas are under what would be described as being under a microscope or a magnifying glass. They're just being melted and burned off the face of the Earth, while rapid global cooling is now occurring in other places of the Earth where they shouldn't be occurring, like South America right now. Looks like Antarctica, literally 12 feet of snow, 15 feet of snow. We've all seen the pictures coming out of Japan, 50 feet of snow, and in some of the islands that has never snowed before is now getting excessive snow. This kind of data is not being showed, but we are having a big problem at the Arctic with this extreme warming, and I don't know. It's cause and effect, and there are consequences. in the description of what is going on here. Now, and nobody is going to believe it. It sounds like HARP, ELF type of, and cloud seeding, trying to desiccate the water molecules over the west coast of the United States of America and now over Europe. While in other places around the world, they're having flash floods, early snowfalls, atmospheric rivers of rain. But yet these specific areas that have the most political strife or dissent or problems seem to be getting melted like a kid with a magnifying glass melting an ant. It's just way too specific. And how they can forecast ahead of time, hundreds of thousands of people, the number here is 150,000. There's no way that they could effectively know that even a major earthquake or a volcanic eruption or even a volcano or a tornado or a hurricane. These numbers exceed any of those events. So it seems to me as though it's being engineered, it's being planned, they're anticipating it. And that's just the way it sounds to me. Maybe I've just been looking at way too much of this stuff that, I want to find reason somewhere, and there just isn't any.
Well, sir, before we wrap up the show tonight, I've got a couple of stories I want to get out there. As artificial intelligence is learning fast from humans, as we're seeing the rise of Skynet, and artificial intelligence is learning from basic human behavior, it's actually turning racist. It's a new story that has come out that artificial intelligence is turning racist as it learns from basic human behavior. I find that really, really curious, because if artificial intelligence is so intelligent, if it is so smart, then it should obviously find that the corporations and the politicians are the biggest threat to humanity. And shouldn't Skynet be targeting them? Not human beings. If artificial intelligence is so intelligent, should it not be targeting politicians and corporations? That's my question. I would really love to see that Skynet go against those who are actually destroying the earth. And a bit of good news right here, cord cutting gets even worse as pay TV sees another quarter of historic declines. People are unplugging their Skynet. People are unplugging their AT&T, their Sky News, their Foxtel. They're switching off the mainstream corporate media and saying, no more, thank you very much. We've had enough of that bullshit. We know you guys are lying, and we're not going to pay for lies anymore. I find that fascinating that people are starting to wake up to this, and that's a sign that there is definitely and indeed an awakening occurring as historic declines in people paying for their Sky Channel and their satellite TVs. It could be a sign that people can't afford this anymore. As Suicide Blonde mentioned earlier, there was a story of a lady working for Facebook who couldn't even afford her own apartment and had to live in her car with her own kids. And this is an employee with a goddamn degree. And they can't even afford to have a house, can't even afford to have a roof over their head, and yet they work for a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Facebook. Yeah, well, fuck you, Mark Zuckerberg. That's all I got to say. Say your goodbyes, Mr. Earthplay. I'm going to say my goodbyes to Mark Zuckerberg as we make sure his company goes down in fucking flames. Your mic, sir.
Okay. Well, I can't top that in any way, Steve, so I'll just say goodnight to everybody. Thanks for joining us and being here on a Thursday night, an impromptu show. We will be back next Tuesday night. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
You have been listening to Rick Chicago and Steve Johnson on the Terraforming Earth Network on earthchangesradio.com. It's been fantastic to be here. I hope you enjoyed the show. I certainly did. We'll be back with more on Tuesday night to give you some more information and, of course, the latest news stories and the latest links to what's happening in the world, on the world, and above the world right here on Earth Changes Radio. Big thanks go out to the sponsors, which include the Southwest Backpacker, Organite by Mishka Eitz, Big Whoop Magazine, and, of course, HowToWinInCourt.com. We'll see you back here next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Terraforming Earth Network. Thanks very much. Take care. God bless. And bye for now. the Grand Canyons. But nevertheless, oh yes, it is. It is indeed just gone 12 midnight in most places in the United States, and that means, of course, it is Friday morning. So a very good morning, a very good afternoon, a very good evening, no matter what's your time zone across this beautiful planet Earth of ours. And of course, it wouldn't be any kind of Earth Changes Radio without thanking and recognizing the sponsors who make this possible. Of course, howtowinincourt.com. Check that out. We have a big thank you to Organite by Mishkaites, and of course, Big Whoop Magazine and the Southwest Backpacker. Anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Earthplay, sir?
Thank you, Steve. I think I would just like to start over. Hello, everybody, all my friends, foes, and assorted others. Another show, Friday morning, midnight, August 10th, 11th, wherever you are in the great country. Is that a little bit better? Thought it was Saturday night. I have to be somewhere today. Let's see. Let's start at the Arctic Circle tonight, Steve. How about that? We'll start in the Arctic Circle. This is a little bit disturbing, but first of all, mentioning the word disturbing, if you are mentally ill or prone to depression or anything like that, well, buckle up, Buttercup, because tonight is going to be another disturbing show. Okay, back to the Arctic Circle. A little bit disturbing. We got the news in today that the interior motion of the Arctic Circle's jet stream is now moving counterclockwise. It should be moving clockwise. It's moving counterclockwise in its center. You can go check this out right now at nullschooldirt.com at 250 in the air menu of the Earth Null School menu. Just set it over the North Pole, and you're going to see. What's so disturbing about this is it's a branch of high pressure, warm air that has been pushed into the Arctic Circle. Now it's right directly over the Arctic Circle at 6 degrees Celsius. That's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the jet streams are being completely disrupted because of this. They're almost intangible, and no discernible patterns right now in the northern jet stream. However, transversely in the southern portion of the planet, where it is winter right now, the jet streams are larger and more active than normal. They're spreading out to about 10 degrees short of the equatorial, 10 degrees off of the equatorial. So this is a phenomena that we have not observed before, new changing type of jet stream circulation that's going on here. Remember, we're also coming into an alignment with Jupiter, August and September, where the Birkeland currents connect with the Earth a little bit and bring us a little bit more energy pumped up into our atmosphere, which brings us the hurricane season in August and September. Couple that with August and September is also the return halon current from the previous explosions at Fukushima. Well, it turns out that the bomb that they're talking about being found at Fukushima Daiichi today turns out to be a World War II arsenal bomb that was found near one of the parking lots on the outskirts of the reactor building number 1, where they were building an excavation trench for some project that they're working on, and found this bomb. So it's left over from World War II. Steve, I can't help but to wonder, do they do geological surveys of any of these nuclear power plants, kind of maybe look into the dirt and seep through it and, see how it's how the strata is formed, and what just might be under the ground there. So, yeah, this turns out to be a false alarm there, SB. Just a World War II era piece of munitions. I don't know. They say it's about the length of a human arm, and probably about the width of a human arm. So I'm not sure how catastrophic a detonation of something that size might be outside the reactor buildings. But this situation also is fluid at Fukushima, so we'll have more on this a little bit later as well. Steve, what do you got up for us today for your first story?
Well, Mr. Earthplay, even though they have found that it is an unexploded ordnance from World War II, don't be surprised if the media reports it as some guy running away from Daiichi power plant yelling Allah Akbar. Don't be surprised if they say that in the media. Very, very interesting. I found this story just recently happening.
Solar from the heliospheric boundaries, like a giant dipole battery. This is the return current in these months, which also supercharged the atmosphere. It's going to be a very exciting month, Steve, with the activity of the polar jet streams acting up the way they are. So we have actually went back and I personally checked this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and 7 years ago, when we were having some serious problems in the Arctic. The temperatures were not at 40 degrees Fahrenheit like they are right now. They were always below zero, always, except in some portions of the ice mass of Greenland, which experienced just a little bit of melting at about 34, 35 degrees. So this is a significant departure from anything that we've seen in the past. Just stay tuned, because this is changing on a daily basis. Just about like the migration of the North Magnetic Pole is now moving east again towards Greenland instead of its march towards Siberia and then hopping around the Arctic Circle. So it's a fluid situation. It's changing day to day, and there's more of this jet stream current. We talked about this a little bit on our show this week, Steve, but we have some big Fukushima news this week. Big Fukushima news. The headlines came out globally today that a bomb was found in the parking lot of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant number 1, giving you the impression that probably a terrorist or somebody was responsible for the...
Welcome back to Changes Radio, episode 23. What in the world is going on? Brought to you by the two guys busier than a cat at a greyhound meeting. And now, here they are. It's Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network. Take it away, boys.
Okay, thank you very much, Carol. As always, we appreciate you. And welcome to another episode of Earth Changes Radio, earthchangesradio.com. Exclusively on Pal Talk in the Ancient Observatory, an impromptu show for Saturday night, August the 10th, 2017, with my good friend Steve Johnson from Australia sitting in. Good evening, Steve.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Earthplay. It is indeed Friday morning here, Thursday night American time, so I don't know if you're coming to us live and direct from the future, whether or not they have some sort of future time machine which has transported you somehow, but that's the kind of twilight zone we live in. Who knows what gosh darn day it is anyway? I mean, this year has gone so fast, it's almost September. Here in Australia, that means it's almost time to plant your tomatoes, or tomatoes, however it is pronounced. I really don't know. But before we go on, I'd like to thank everybody in the chat room today, Mr. P.D. James, CJ4, Mr. Benjamin, Daves. Hey, what's going on? True Seeker 38. True Seeker, take the mic. Take the mic. True Seeker, take the mic. Suicide Blonde, God bless you. Textman2, Seabot, of course, and Mr. Breathing Lightning, and yours truly, Rick James. Did I say Rick James, bitch? No, I said Mr. Rick Chicago, coming to us live and direct from his undisclosed location in a concrete bunker underneath the canyon.